Hello everyone, thank you for joining me on my channel. Today I'm going to do a review of Stratford watercolour paper. On first opening this lovely pad, I feel like it's got a really lovely weight to it. And it says 100% cotton, fine grain, it's £140. But if you note here, it also says mixed media, so it's a mixed paper. But when you open it, you can see a beautiful, really smooth surface. It's exactly what it says on the front. It's got a good weight to it. It's £140 like it says, but it feels really quite hefty. If you've never seen this paper before, you'll be pleased to know that this is ticking more boxes than just the technical side. So I have a lot of technical things that I do with my paper, but if you are in any way worried about the environment and the planet, this is the paper. This paper is ethically sourced and sustainable, so that's taking a lot of boxes. But what really sets it aside from all others is the fact that it's vegan friendly. So it's a really good all-round, ticking as many boxes as you can think of. Down here, this is a nice little touch. If you are not happy with your product for any reason, please contact Stratfords Art. Very rarely do you ever see that on a pad of watercolour paper. So I'm already very impressed with the packaging and the attention to detail. So let's get on and have a go with the paper. Okay, so what I want to do is to just put this paper through its paces. So what I want to do is to just section out some of this so that I can see if all the techniques that I would use, I know all of you have different techniques that you would want to use with watercolour. And I'm just going to test a few and see what happens. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do, I know some of you have had problems with resist, where it has stuck to the paper. So I'm going to put that on first so that it dries. And let's just blob that on. So we'll let that dry. And we'll come back to that one. Another form of resist that I know some of you use is the wax. So again, let's use some wax. First of all, I want to actually start with some colour. So let's choose some yellow. Should you be wondering, I make my own paints, so that's why they're in these magnetic pans. Now I do a lot of wetting to wet, so this paper needs to be able to cope with a lot of water. So we're going to start. Now bear in mind, I have not stretched this paper. This is not a block. They are loose leaf. But first of all, I just want to see how... Oh, look at that travelling. That's great. That's the kind of thing I would want to see. The paint really travelling. I'd also want to know what the paint is actually going to dry like. What are those pigments going to look like once they're dry? Are they going to be dull? Are they going to keep their freshness? These look quite good. I'm very impressed so far. So finish with a bit of brown. A little extra yellow in. So they seem to be dropping in really quite nicely. And the colours seem to be quite fresh, which is always a bonus. Yes, look at that. It's really taking the colour well. Okay, so I'm just going to try another wet into wet. Oh, I seem to have picked up something there. Just take that off while putting water on. Okay, so let's try blue. I'm also impressed at the fact the paper has not cockled yet. So another technique I know some of you like to use is to just lift, and that's lifted beautifully. So again, I'm just going to add a little extra pigment just to see how it copes. It's keeping the colour really well. Okay, so I'm going to have to go back and take out a little bit more. Lifting is something I do a lot of, so for me, papers really have got to be able to cope with lifting. Okay, let's try another colour. I like to see how all the colours actually look on new papers. That's fading out quite nicely. So that was straight on to dry, so that's wet on dry. That's actually worked quite well. Brush strokes are disappearing really well too. Okay, so this isn't dry, so we're going to wait for that to dry, but let's just have a go at the resist. Let's find another deeper colour and see what we have. Oh yes, bit of ultramarine, look at that. And they're really nice lines, they're really sharp. And I still have no cockling on the paper, even though I have added water. So right now I'm really quite impressed with the surface of this paper. So what I'm going to do is to allow this masking fluid to dry and allow the rest to dry. And then I'm going to try lifting out on dry. Okay, so this is all dry now. The resist is dry, so I'm going to have a go at, let's take some more green, brighter green. And just cover this. So again, this is really about how it lifts off. When it's dried, does it rip the paper? I know many of you will have experienced that, just as I have. So it's always great to get a paper that works in conjunction with it. So I'm really happy with the way these colours have actually dried. They've really kept their colour a bit mattified, which is quite handy. I'm going to check whether we can do a dry lift. So I'm going to take some clean water and a small brush. Let's just do it here. So this is another technique that I use frequently, is just to be able to lift. Now, not all papers love lifting. This is lifting out lovely. And you'll also notice that I haven't got any rivers in this. I haven't stretched the paper. I've just left it on its block. And I'm able to leave it to dry naturally, and hey presto, it's gone flat again. And I haven't had to lift up lots of water, although I haven't truly soaked the paper yet. So that's lifting out lovely. So I think we'll have, actually let's use the big brush. Let's try a lovely red colour. So something else I love to use, and I know many others do too, is some salt. So let's see how it works with some salt. So this is the sea salt, and this side is the table salt. So again, we have to let these dry naturally just to find out what will happen. But in the meantime, something you might like to do with your clouds is to just fluff up some of the edges with some clean water. So I'm able to get a little bit more out, which is really good. So remember, this is the fine grain, which at the moment I'm really quite impressed with. I can see a lot of botanical work being done with this paper. Yeah, that's cool. So just back to the cover. You'll notice it says expert on there, but I would not be put off and not buy this just because it says expert. If you're a beginner, it's definitely worth a try. Okay, so everything is now dry, so I'm going to try and get this masking fluid off. So I'm going to use a rubber just for speed. I'm just going to take off the salt, and look at these lovely patterns. So that's done really well. I'm really pleased with the surface of this. Normally for salts I would normally use a rougher surface, but actually this is beautiful. Okay, so we have a tear, but actually the paper has worked really well, and I still haven't had to stretch it. Look, it's perfectly flat. That's got to be a first. I'm really pleased, which shows I can do a lot more. While I was waiting for this to dry, I'd actually gone back in just to see how much more lifting I could actually do, how much scrubbing this paper will take. And if you look, I'm scrubbing really quite hard, I'm not going to lie, and it hasn't gone pilly. Another bonus. So all in all, I'm really quite impressed with this paper. If you've enjoyed this review, please subscribe to my channel and follow my journey as I put this paper through its paces. Thank you for watching.